Hey everyone, it's Scary Bad Reviews here, and this is the first episode of the weekly review roundup. So let's go. Some of you may have already read my reviews before on Instagram. I ran an Instagram page that had not very many followers. It was difficult for me to keep up with the movies that I was putting in place for myself to review. I was trying to review, recent things that came out in the horror industry, as well as things pertaining to holidays or certain events of the year, and it was difficult for me to translate my thoughts into something that was, coherent in a character limit on social media. So I thought, why not give it a try, use my voice instead of typing it, and see if I couldn't make something a little better. So now I'm going to be using this as a means of reviewing whatever I've watched during the week. It'll make it a little bit easier rather than sitting down and typing out some long thing that most people probably wouldn't even read when they see it. Show my face off a little bit and just speak about movies that I've seen in the past week. So without further ado, here is our first weekly roundup. So the first thing I want to talk about is Netflix's own Little Evil. Came out last year in 2017, has Adam Scott playing the main character, so it's got a little bit of something to it for familiar faces. I was pleasantly surprised by this. I mean, I went into it just expecting, another little goofball movie that Netflix has made that's not very good. But it really feels like if they took The Omen and made it into a comedy movie in the best way possible. I mean, you have all the same aspects of this Antichrist child that can't stand any of his father figures and finds a way to drive everybody crazy around him. And Adam Scott is able to see that happening and put a comedic spin on it in the same way that he has in past movies before. I've said it before in reviews. I was very pleasantly surprised to see how well he brought comedic timing and the kind of badassery you need to carry a horror movie to Krampus. I thought he wouldn't fit that role, and then after I saw it a couple times, I was very pleasantly surprised with his performance. So he does a very good job in this movie, and I think he's now found a new niche for himself in Hollywood and being able to star in big-scale horror comedies if people will still make them. But I mean, there's a couple great moments in it. The earthworms coming out of his nose. You have these great moments where the son, Lucas, is getting all angry, telling people to go to hell, and his eyes light up, and hell opens up and takes these people. Some great homages, like I said, to The Omen. There's actually a direct reference to the movie in one of the scenes of dialogue. This great big cult scene that happens at the end, still with comedy sprinkled into it. It feels like a comedy first, but then it takes the good aspects of the horror genre and kind of sprinkles them in there to liven up the story a little bit. And I was very happy, and I was very happy that I watched it, because it was pretty good. It was pretty good. I'd probably give it a solid 7 out of 10. I had a good time watching it. If you've watched horror movies before, I feel like you'll really enjoy it. And even if you haven't, I feel like you'll appreciate a lot of the comedy in it and some of the comedic timing that Adam has with Lucas. So that's our first movie of the week. Our second movie of the week is a hidden gem deep in the horror section of Netflix that's called Beyond the Gates. The movie is about these two brothers, and their father goes missing, and they need to go and start cleaning out his video store that he used to have. He has this huge, video rental store that has VCRs of every single kind, and they said that their father loved horror movies, so he has them in abundance. While they begin to clean this out, they kind of start dissecting their own relationship between each other within their family. So there's not very much chemistry between the brothers. A lot of their interactions early in the movie feel really forced and poorly written. As the movie progresses, it gets more mysterious about their father disappearing, about both of the brothers' backstories, what they've done since they've seen each other last. And then as they're cleaning, they find this VCR board game that they begin to play, and they start realizing, okay, why is the tape interacting with us in a way that movies can't really do? Like, you have the woman on the tape directly speaking with them, almost reactionary. So they go into playing this board game with one of the brothers' fiancés, and as it progresses, they start realizing this board game causes actions to happen in real life. It causes deaths in real life. They then have to keep building on this and doing things that are very bad. Um, One of them was to kill the police officer. One of them was to kill one of the brother's best friends. They almost had to kill the brother's fiance. And it just kept building, building, building to this moment where they find their dad trapped in the board game and they have to save him. After they find their dad, after they do everything that they're supposed to do to save him, they're brought back to the real world and their dad's nowhere to be found. They don't really worry about it. It just kind of goes on and it ends with them just kind of being happy. The ending was poorly wrapped together. You expect to see the father come back with them, and the fact that he doesn't is kind of pointless. It makes most of the movie feel like it was a waste of time. The pace that this movie works at was terrible. I mean, the first 45 minutes of it just go on forever, mentioning the board game once. There's no jump scares. There's no creepy, tension-filled moments. It's just two dudes working on clearing out a video rental store, talking about what's happened in their lives for the past, like, 10 years. And it doesn't work very well because the two brothers don't feel like they're brothers. They don't work very well together on camera. Once the board game actually picks up and starts, the pace picks up slightly, but not enough to keep your attention. It's very difficult to watch all the way through the end. It was an hour and 45 minutes, and it honestly felt like I was watching it for 3 hours. It just kept going and going and going. The side performances are all kind of bland, except for one. They eventually go to the shop where the board game was bought to try to figure out more about it, and the shopkeeper is this Edgar Allan Poe type in the classic Victorian suit with eyeliner and real spooky Vincent Price voice. Like, he kind of brought a nice little spotlight into the movie, a nice little glimmer of actual horror background, and he was a fun point in the movie, but other than that, the rest of it was bleak. The special effects were expectedly bad. It was a low-budget movie, but it wasn't in a way that, oh, these look bad, but they're funny. No, they just looked terrible and took away even further from the movie. Most of the movie's special effects were just fog with some lights in them, and it did not work at all on camera. I honestly felt like it was a chore to finish the movie, and at the end of it all, I would give it maybe a 3. I mean, it's hard to gauge it because my attention was elsewhere throughout most of it because of how slow it moved and how just there was no chemistry on screen. It doesn't keep your attention at all. So probably a 3 out of 10. So the last movie I want to talk about is Netflix put up this movie called Veronica. It came from the same people who worked on the Rec movies, and this movie kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, people were excited about it because of how good the Rec movies were, but people didn't expect to feel this way about this movie. A young girl and her friends, she had just lost her father. They are planning to use the solar eclipse that's coming up to use a Ouija board and talk to the spirit of her father to try to find out, if he's still around, if he misses them, the usual type deal. When they try to use the Ouija board, it opens up a portal and something comes out. They don't know what it is. They can't find it, but they know it's there. This something then continually haunts this girl and her family. She has 2 younger siblings and a mother who is always working. She has 2 jobs pretty much and just continues to work to try to support the family. So this main character, Veronica, is 16 years old and basically doing everything that a mother would do at home. And then to add on top of that stress, you have this demon that's terrorizing her and her family. As it progresses through, her friends start to, divert their way away from her. She can't talk to anybody in school about it. The only person who seems to understand what's happening is a blind nun that works at the school, who's an interesting character. She has this presence on screen and kind of draws your attention in, and this slow, collected, calculated deliverance of her lines. And she was a hidden gem in the movie. But all in all, the movie was surprisingly good. Like, it took a lot of the good portions of the modern ghost movement from Conjuring and Insidious and the first Sinister and Paranormal Activity. It took a lot of those moments in ghost movies that scare you, and ran with it. Like, they had great little jump scares in it. They had great little tension builders and finding, spots and upside down crosses and things that you usually do. The demon itself looked menacing. It was a good design on it. And then it adds in almost the teenage coming of age story like we saw in It Follows, where it's this girl who's trying to figure out her life and she can't because there's a demon in the way. Um, it took the good aspects of both those kinds of movies and just combined them into this nice little hour and a half success. I mean, I enjoyed the movie very much. A lot of the people who I know who watch horror movies enjoyed it a lot. I personally myself would give it a solid 8.5 out of 10. I think that there's still some things that they could have done differently, cinematography wise, and I think it falls flat in dialogue a couple times here or there, but I don't think there's ever a moment where you feel like it's a bad movie and you shouldn't be watching. I mean, the pace is always good. It keeps moving forward. There's always something in every scene to keep the tension up, to scare you. The Spanish in it, sometimes it's difficult for people who only speak English to watch foreign movies that are in a foreign language. And I feel like even if you don't know any Spanish, you could sit down and watch this movie comfortably with the subtitles. I don't think it pulls away from the story at all. So at the end of the day, this movie was a good, solid 8.5, and I really enjoyed it. And anybody who enjoys horror at all, I feel like should watch it. So that's the first weekly review roundup. I'm going to continue to try to do these over this summer going into the next school year. Just talking about what movies I watched during the week. They won't always be horror themed. That's usually most of what I watch, as it is my favorite genre, but sometimes there'll be other things in there depending on what I go see in the theater. But, if you sit down and watch one of these videos, maybe send it to your friend, maybe send it to a coworker, just kind of let people know, hey, this guy's reviewing, and his opinions might suck, but at least he's sharing them. So, thank you.